In today's video, I'm back out on the range with my Savage 110 chambered in 260 Remington. Now, the last time I had this out, I was doing a really quick load workup on these 100 grain ELD-VT bullets from Hornady. So today, I'm going to shoot the load that I worked up for these alongside a load for these 147 grain ELD match bullets that I also recently worked up. So previously, I was shooting the 140 grain ELD-Ms out of this rifle, and I had a bunch of these 147s laying around, so I decided to work up a load for it. I'm almost out of the 140s. So what I'm going to do today is shoot both of these on paper side by side, see what the accuracy looks like, see how much different the zero is, and then I'm going to shoot them both out to 500 yards on my steel targets and back my velocity data out and compare the drops. So we're going to start out with a 3-round group of my 140 ELD-M load, my old load. We're going to follow that up with the 3-round group of the 100 grain ELD-VTs, and then we'll finish out with the 3-round group of the 147 grain ELD-Ms. Okay, so we finished up the paper shooting portion here. You can see first group here with the 140s was my best group, sub-inch there. And then I shot the 100 grain ELD-VTs, and you can see they landed about an inch low. So that's no problem. I could make that adjustment in the app because when I came and shot my 147s, it looks like we got the same zero as the 140s. So in order to not be changing zeros back and forth, I'll just account for this in my app, and I'll dial accordingly, but then I'll still be able to back that velocity data out. Now, in hindsight, I should have shot the 147s after the 140s because I'm using, on both of these, I'm using Hodgdon H4831, and I'm running Varget in the hundreds. So I'm probably seeing a little bit of group deterioration because I'm changing powders and not shooting any foulers in between, but that's okay. Today's video isn't really about shooting tight groups. I want to gather some drop data, so we'll go ahead and move on to the 200, or excuse me, we'll go ahead and move on to the steel range, and we are going to start out on the 147s, shoot those all the way out to 500, and then we'll start over with the hundreds and shoot those. So we'll be able to kind of foul the gun in a little bit, and we'll keep the residue in the barrel from this one to start out with. Starting out with the 147 ELDs at 200 yards, the app is calling for 0.4 of a mil. Hit a little bit low, not sure what that's about, but gonna move on to 300. At 300, we're calling for 1.1 mils with the 147s. Moving on to 400 yards, the app is calling for 1.9 mils. My current velocity that I've got plugged in is 2680. All right, hit a little bit high there at 400. I'm going to go ahead and bump my velocity up in my app a little bit, probably making it even 2700, and then we'll move on to 500. At 500 yards, after making that velocity change, the app is calling for 2.7 mils. First one hit low, so I went ahead and gave it another round just for fun. Second one hit about right where I expected, so somewhere in that range, 2680 to 2700 is what my velocity is on those 147s. So now we'll go back to 200 and shoot the 100s. Back at 200, with starting out with the 100 grain ELD-VTs, I've just got a guess of a velocity of 3200 plugged in, so we'll see how we hit. Now, since we had a zero difference between our 147 and our 100, and that 100 grain load hit about an inch low, I'm going to run the zero angle tool in the Hornady app. So my adjustments will be taking into account that offset difference. So here at 200 yards, it's calling for a 1/2 mil elevation. Okay, good hit there. Moving on to 300. App is calling for 1 mil at 300. Okay, hit pretty low there at 300. I'm going to adjust my velocity down to 3,100 and then move on to 400. With the velocity correction at 400 yards, it's calling for 1.7 mils. A little bit low there at 400. I'm going to make another correction down to 3,000 feet per second. With that velocity correction at 500 yards, calling for 2.6 mils. Okay, went ahead and put 2 hits on it. First one was a little low, and then I made an adjustment and held a little high and left, and then I hit basically point of impact, or point of aim. So not sure why that first one was low. I think maybe just a precision issue, or the wind is switching a little bit. It's kind of a tailwind, but it's switching a little bit up there on the hill. So I'm pretty satisfied that around 3,000 feet per second is kind of where that is going to land, versus that roughly 2,700 feet per second for the 147 ELD. To kind of put a bow on the results I got between the 2 bullets, what I was able to determine is that my 100 grain VT bullets are going about 3,000 feet per second, and my 147 ELDs are around 2,700. I actually called it 2,690, but since we were running that offset, those corrections that I'm making have that factored in. So what I did to just kind of give you an idea of where we ended up is go back through here, and I subtracted that basically 3/10 of a mil offset that we're running. So at 200, the VT is a 0.3 mil and the ELD is a 0.4. At 300, we were 0.9 and 1 mil. At 400 is where it kind of started to separate in favor of the faster bullet. So the 100 grain VT was a 1.5 mil, and the 147 was a 1.8 mil correction. Kind of same deal at 500, 2.3 mils on the 100 grain bullet and 2.7 mils on the 147. Now, what I did is go in and plug 1,000 into both of those profiles on the app, and by the time we get to 1,000, we're at 8.4 mils for both of them. So, you know, inside that 1,000-yard range, that speed and that, you know, pretty good ballistic design of that 100 grain is actually going to be a little flatter for you, you know, for varmints or whatever. But once you get out to that 1,000-yard marker and beyond, that's where that higher weight of the 147 is really going to take over, despite the initial velocity being so much less. So anyway, pretty fun little experiment to do. I need to get out a little further and shoot them both out, you know, 1,000 or beyond, and kind of see how they turn out that way. But anyway, thanks for watching.